I know
Ring comes back.
I may not have witnessed it, but I've read about it in the history books. I've seen the C-SPAN footage, archives. Sometimes I've watched them for hours. And yes, I've actually done that. And the history of our country in those books and in those tapes, the history of this country has been defined right here on this floor. The 13th Amendment, the amendment abolishing slavery, was passed in this very room. In this room, not figuratively, literally.
Literally.
Where you all sit and where I stand. In 1964, this body, with the help of senators like John Sherman Cooper and so many others, this body secured passage of the Civil Rights Act.
Hey, Lena, what's up?
We made the decision to enter World War II from this chamber. We've certainly had our struggles, but we've always risen to the occasion when it mattered the most. Not by ignoring injustice or cowering to bullies and threats, but by doing the right thing, by trying to do the right thing. And that's why so many nations around the world aspire to be like America. They stand up
less and less every year.
Autocrats and tyrants, because America is a
less and
guiding light
less
for them, a North Star. They do so, they look to us because we have been a guiding light, a North Star in these moments. Because the people who sat in your chairs, when confronted with choices that define us, rose to the occasion. I want to offer one more example of a decision made in this room by this body that resonated with me. The first day I stood up in this trial, I mentioned that I was the son of immigrants, like many of you, and many senators graciously approached me after my presentation and asked me where my parents were from. And I told those who asked that my folks were from East Africa. In 1986, this body considered a bill to override President Reagan's veto of legislation imposing sanctions on South Africa during apartheid. Two senators who sit in this room, one Democrat and one Republican, voted to override that veto.
Oof.
That vote was not about gaining political favor. And in fact, it was made despite potentially losing political favor. And I have to imagine that that vote was cast like the decisions before it, because there are moments that transcend party politics and that require us to put country above our party, because the consequences of not doing so are just too great. Senators, this is one of those moments. Many folks who are watching today's proceedings may not know this, but House members like me and Lead Manager Raskin, our fellow managers, we're not allowed on the Senate floor without express permission. No one is. Certainly the senators are aware of that. This floor is sacred.
Someone took a shit on it.
One of the reasons why I, like so many of you, was so offended to see it desecrated by that mob. To see those insurrectionists diminishing and devaluing and disrespecting these hallowed halls that my whole life I have held in such awe. Because of those rules that
off your tea break, that's what's up.
This will be the only time I have the privilege to stand before you like this. When the trial's over, I'll go back.
Oh, I had to undo and redo Twitch, so you can go back to that if you want.
The trial will end. We'll resume our lives and our work. But for some, there will be no end to the pain of what happened on January 6th. The officers who struggled to recover from the injuries they sustained to protect us. They struggle to recover today. The families who continue to mourn those who they lost.
It's all good.
Terrible, tragic day. I was struck yesterday by defense counsel's continued references to hate.
Where do they get the
One
balls?
of my favorite quotes of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it's one that has sustained me during times of adversity. I suspect it sustained some of you, is that I've decided to stick with love, that hate is too great a burden to bear. This trial is not born from hatred. Far from it. It's born from love of country.
Yep.
Our country. Our desire to maintain it. Our desire to see America at
the hell
its
happened?
best. And in those moments that I spoke of, Civil Rights
Stupid
Act,
thing.
so much more, we remember those moments because they helped define and enshrine
There it is.
America at its best. I firmly believe that our certification of the Electoral College votes in the early hours of January 7th, our refusal to let our republic be threatened and taken down by a violent mob, will go down in history as one of those moments too. And I
Agreed.
believe that this body can rise to the occasion once again today by convicting President Trump, defending our republic.
Come on, Ted Cruz. You're not defending your wife. Might as well defend your country.
This could not be higher.
That's what we paid you for.
Because the cold, hard truth is that what happened on January 6th can happen again. I fear, like many of you do, that the violence we saw on that terrible day may be just the beginning. We've shown you the ongoing risks, the extremist groups who grow more emboldened every day. Senators, this cannot be the beginning. It can't be the new normal. It has to be the end. And that decision is in your hands.
This guy's good. He's got kind of like that Obama cadence, I felt like.
Mr. President,
The pauses.
Senators, my daughter Hannah said something to me last night that stopped me cold and brought me up short. Our kids have been very moved by all the victims of the violence, the officers and their families. But Hannah told me last night she felt really sorry for the kid of a man who said goodbye to his children before he left home to come and join Trump's actions. Their father had told them that their dad might not be coming home again and they might never see him again.
Jesus Christ.
In other words, he was expecting violence. He might die, as insurrectionists did. And that shook me. Hannah said, how can the president put children and people's families in that situation and then just run away from the whole thing?
Because that's what he does.
That shook me. And I was filled with self-reproach because when I first saw the line about, your father going to Washington and you might not see him again, I just thought about it, well, like a prosecutor, like a manager. I thought, what damning evidence that is, that people are expecting lethal violence at a protest called by the President of the United States.
Yep.
And saying their final goodbyes to their kids. But Hannah, my dear Hannah, thought of it like a human being. She thought of it, if you'll forgive me, like a patriot. Someone who just lost her brother and doesn't want to see any other kids in America go through that kind of agony and grief. Senators, when I say all three of my kids are better than me, you know that I am not engaged in idle flattery. Maybe some of you feel the same way about your kids. They're literally better people than me. They've got a lot of their mom, Sarah Bloom Raskin, in them. And they're better than me. And Hannah saw through the legality of the situation. She saw through the politics of the situation, all the way to the humanity of the situation, the morality of the situation. That was one of the most patriotic things I ever heard anybody say. The children of the insurrectionists, even the violent and dangerous ones, they're our children too. They are Americans, and we must take care of them and their future. We must recognize and exercise these crimes against our nation, and then we must take care of our people and our children, their hearts and their minds. As Tommy Raskin used to say, it's hard to be human. Many of the Capitol and Metropolitan Police officers and guardsmen and women who were beaten up by the mob also have kids. You remember Officer Fanone, who had a heart attack after being tased and roughed up for hours by the mob, and then begged for his life, telling the insurrectionists that he had 4 daughters.
Jesus Christ, dude.
And that just about broke my heart all over again. We talked about this for a long time last night.
That was the moment that made me feel pity for cops. That was the one time.
By a president of the United States. Senators, we proved he betrayed his country. We proved he betrayed his Constitution. We proved he betrayed his oath of office. The startling thing to recognize now is that he is even betraying the mob. He told them he would march with them, and he didn't.
Ran right over
the president
them.
was right there with them somewhere in the crowd, fighting the fantasy conspiracy to steal the election and steal their country.
Stop the steal.
They thought they were one big team working together. He told them their great journey together was just beginning, and now there are hundreds of criminal prosecutions getting going all over the country. People getting set to say goodbye to members of their family.
Jesus.
And the president who contacted them, solicited them, lured them, invited them, incited them, that president has suddenly gone quiet and dark. Nowhere to be found. He cannot be troubled to come here to tell us what happened and tell us why this was the patriotic and the constitutional thing to do. Senators, this trial in the final analysis is not about Donald Trump. The country and the world know who Donald Trump is. This trial is about who we are. Who we are. My friend Dar Williams says that sometimes the truth is like a second chance. We've got a chance here with the truth. Do we still believe in the separation of powers? President Trump tried to sideline or run over every other.
He absolutely should have been at his own impeachment hearing. Are you kidding me? It's laughable. Everything about this is laughable. Did you see the videos yesterday? They were talking about videos being edited, and this is the defense was bitching about edited videos and chopped up videos and stuff like that. But then they had the balls to play edited music, with bed music. It's fucking insane.
Back them up against savage, barbaric, insurrectionary violence.
It's like people that went to law school by watching Law and Order. They just think the bed music is part of the deal.
Will we be a democratic nation that the world looks to for understanding democratic values and practices and constitutional government and the rights of women and men? Will the Senate condone the President of the United States inciting a violent attack on our...
He is not going to get, just so we're all clear, he's not going to get impeached.
When you see the footage of Officer Hodges stuck in the doorway, literally being tortured by the mob. If government did that to you, that would be torture. And when you see that footage and he's shouting in agony for his dear life, it's almost unwatchable. When the Vice President of the United States escapes a violent mob that's entered this Capitol building seeking to hang him and calling out traitor, traitor, traitor. And when they shut down the counting of the Electoral College votes, is this the future you imagine for our kids? Is it totally appropriate, as we've been told?
Literally, it is the cartoon version of what I thought was going to happen.
Of the presidential oath of office in the history of our country. And if we can't handle this together as a people, all of us, forgetting the lines of party and ideology and geography and all of those things, if we can't handle this, how are we ever going to conquer the other crises of our day? Is this America?
Is this America?
Is this what we want to bequeath to our children and our grandchildren?
I always found bequeath to be a very weird word.
I was never a great Sunday school student. Actually, I was pretty truant most of the time. But one line always stuck with me from the book of Exodus as both beautiful and haunting, even as a kid, after I asked what the words meant. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil.
I forgot about that one.
The officer who got called the N-word 15 times and spent hours with his colleagues battling insurrectionists who had metal poles and baseball bats and hockey sticks, bear spray, and Confederate battle flags.
Including
posed the right
QAnon.
question to the Senate and to all of us. Is this America? Dear senators, that's going to be up to you now. And whatever committees and subcommittees you're on,
Yeah.
whatever you came to Washington to do, to work on, from defense to agriculture to energy to aerospace to healthcare, this is almost certainly how you will be remembered by history. That might not be fair. It really might not be fair, but none of us
But
can
it
escape
but it
the
is.
demands of
It's kind of
history
fair.
and destiny right now.
It's a little fair.
Our reputations and our legacy will be inextricably intertwined with what we do here and with how you exercise your oath to do impartial justice. Impartial justice. I know and I trust you will do impartial justice. Driven
If
by
you
your
trust, you're
meticulous
disappointed.
attention to the overwhelming facts.
You are going to be disappointed if you're trusting these people to be, like, moral. It's the job they signed up for, but it's not the job that they want to do. That's what they signed up for because that's what's on the paperwork, but it's not what they wanted to do.
Son, the times have found us. Is this America? What kind of America will we be? It's now literally in your hands. Godspeed to the Senate of the United States.
Godspeed.
We reserve any remaining time.
The House is reserved 28 minutes.
28 minutes. All right. This is all a dog and pony show. I don't expect this to be successful. I don't expect Dorito Mussolini to get pinched. Hey,
talking,
Lauren, how are you?
and it will not be so long. And before I start my prepared closing, I really want to clean up a few things from the mess that was the closing of the House managers. I do not want to ruin my closing because I think the ending's pretty good. What they didn't,
The ending's pretty good. This is a TV show.
they started off by misstating the law, and they started off by misstating the intent of
Just watching the world burn. Just watching the world burn, Lauren.
stipulate to an article that was published in a magazine. Apparently, they've had for weeks, according to the documents they produced today. But for some reason, this morning popped up with it. The stipulation was that they can put that in. We did not stipulate to its contents for truthfulness. And they tried to portray that in their closing as the stipulation. The stipulation was read into the record.
In real time, for sure.
The proponents of that conversation, the real ones, have denied its content, its veracity. With respect to, and I'm not going to talk much about the tortured analysis of our arson laws that started off, or the truly sideways analogies that were used with fires.
Here we go.
What I do want to talk about, though, is the doctoring of evidence. First of all,
You played shit with literal bed music, bro. What the hell are you talking about?
the 9th at 2:32 p.m. by email, I was in this room trying the case already when they sent their evidence. Due process. They used evidence that was flat wrong 2 or 3 nights ago with Senator Lee and had to withdraw it. They tried to use it again today. They tried to use evidence that they had never presented in the case in their closing argument. That is a very desperate attempt by a prosecuting team, 9 of them, by a prosecuting team that knew that their case has collapsed.
I wonder what it's like to be gaslit by the gaslighter's lawyer. That's got to be some like professional level gaslighting. Industrial gaslighting? Is that a thing?
They didn't talk about the Constitution once. They didn't talk about the First Amendment.
Oh, here we go. Buzzword bingo. Who's got First Amendment and who's got Constitution? Take a shot.
For my client.
What happened? Did we die? Did you? Oh. He's just looking for which lie to
Basic
kinda.
rule of any court
Here we go.
is that when you close a case out, you close on the facts that were admitted in the trial. It's a basic fundamental principle of due process and fairness. And that was violently breached today on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself, why?
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 Did you hear that? You have to ask yourself, why? Yeah, he had technical difficulties apparently. He was looking through his lies.
Senators, good afternoon, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
What took place here at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th was a grave tragedy.
That is such a great synopsis of what he just said. But they're lying.
Infiltration of the Capitol was anything less than a heinous act on the home of American democracy. All of us, starting with my client, are deeply disturbed by the graphic videos of the Capitol attack that have been shown.
Whatever. He was
days.
jerking off to it in the Oval Office or wherever.
The team condemned and have repeatedly condemned the violence and law breaking that occurred on January.
No.
6th.
That's Trump saying
As long
that.
as
He
possible
stomps his feet and calls his mommy.
advocated that everybody be found, punished to the maximum extent of the law. Yet the question before us is not whether there was a violent insurrection of the Capitol. On that point, everyone agrees. Based on the explicit text of the House impeachment article, this trial is about whether Mr. Trump willfully engaged in incitement of violence and even insurrection against the United States.
Was he not there when they played the
That
videos?
question they have posed in their article impeachment has to be set up against the law of this country. No
Pathetic.
matter how much truly horrifying footage we see of the conduct of the rioters and how much emotion has been injected into this trial, that does not change the fact that Mr. Trump is innocent of the charges against him. Despite all of the video played, at no point in their presentation did you hear the House managers play a single example of Mr. Trump urging anyone to engage in violence of any kind. At no point did you hear anything that could ever possibly be construed as Mr. Trump encouraging or sanctioning an insurrection. Senators, you did not hear those tapes because they do not exist.
Oh, shut up.
Because the act of incitement never happened. He engaged in no language of incitement whatsoever on January 6th or any other day following the election. No unbiased person honestly reviewing the transcript of Mr. Trump's speech on the ellipse could possibly believe that he was suggesting violence.
This is
He
hilarious.
explicitly told the crowd that he expected the protest outside the Capitol to be peaceful and patriotic. They claim that's not enough. His entire premise was that the proceedings of the joint session should continue. He spent nearly the entire speech talking about how he believes the senators and members of Congress should vote on the matter. It's the words. The Supreme Court ruled in Brandenburg that there is a very clear standard for incitement. In short, you have to look at the words themselves. The words have to either explicitly or implicitly call for lawlessness or violence. Whether the speech, you have to determine whether the speech was intended to provoke the lawlessness and whether the violence was the likely result of the word itself. They fail on all three prongs. The false and defamatory claim that Mr. Trump gave a speech encouraging his supporters to go attack the Capitol has been repeated so often, uncritically.
Yeah,
without
seriously.
any examination of the underlying facts.
I was just about to say it. Good Lord. What kind of... yeah, seriously. Maybe he means something different. I don't know what's... the hell's wrong with this person?
Tweets in the weeks leading up to January 6th very closely. We know that he was not trying to foment an insurrection during the time because no one, from the Speaker of the House to the Mayor of Washington, D.C., behaved in a fashion consistent with the belief that violence was being advocated for. Mr. Trump did not spend the weeks prior to January 6th inciting violence. He spent those weeks pursuing his election challenge through the court system and other legal procedures, exactly as
I didn't know if it was the internet buffering or if it was him buffering, like last time.
To believe, based on the evidence you have seen, that Mr. Trump actually wanted and indeed willfully incited an armed insurrection to overthrow the U.S. government would be absurd. The gathering on January 6th was supposed to be an entirely peaceful event.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of people, including Mr. Trump, showed up that day with that intention. A small percentage, a small fraction of those people then engaged in truly horrible behavior. But as we now know, that those actors were pre-planned and premeditated and acted even before the speech was completed, to which is the basis of the article of impeachment. It was
This is hilarious to me.
pre-planned and premeditated by fringe left and right groups. They hijacked the event for their own purposes.
So for those playing the home game, just to let you know, in this word, what is this, like a word washing machine? Sounds like he put just a bunch of words on Tumblr, just blah, 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 on the Tumblr setting, not Tumblr the website. But for those playing the home game, when it comes to the good stuff and the patriotic stuff, it was the right wing guys. But the bad stuff was some right wing and some left wing people. That checks out.
The flimsy theory of incitement you heard from the House managers could be used to impeach, indict, or expel countless other.
Exactly. Did he not see that? Did he not see the graphic of the cell towers? For those of you not on the Facebook or the YouTube streams, Yeah. It's not, I mean, dude, they signed up for a website that was on a WordPress site that got hacked. So we have all of the data. We know where all of these technical neophytes, MAGA people were going, because they don't know what they are doing when it comes to technology. They are bad at it. That's why they all get caught.
Politicians spent months prior to January 6th attacking the very legitimacy of our nation's most cherished institutions and traditions. They didn't just question the integrity of one election. They challenged the integrity of our entire nation. Everything from our founding fathers, our Constitution, Declaration of Independence.
But it wasn't this
law
guy's fault.
enforcement officers and United States military. They said that our society was rooted in hatred. They even said that America deserved, and I'll quote, a reckoning.
A reckoning.
As you heard yesterday, throughout the summer, Democrat leaders, including the current president and vice president, repeatedly made comments that provided moral comfort to.
I'll give people $50,000 that I don't have if you find me a single person that was arrested that was a leftist or a left winger.
As we all know,
I'm about to owe somebody 50 grand, I'm sure.
Shot at point blank range. Members of this very body have been in danger. Senators from Maine to Kentucky and most points in between have been harassed by mobs. Last August, a menacing left-wing mob swarmed Senator Rand Paul and his wife as they left the White House, and they had to be rescued by police.
Those angry left-wingers.
Our federal courthouse in Portland was placed under siege by violent anarchists who attacked law enforcement officers daily and repeatedly and tried to set fire to the building. Speaker Pelosi did not call the violent siege of the federal building an insurrection.
I have a friend that lives in Portland, and that day that they were talking about the violence and all that stuff, he posted a picture outside of Jamba Juice or something.
Was besieged by mobs that threw bricks, rocks, and bottles at Secret Service agents, set fire to an historic structure, and breached a security fence to infiltrate the Treasury grounds. When my client's administration sent in the National Guard to secure the nation's capital city amidst the violence, Democrat leaders demanded that the forces be withdrawn. The Washington, D.C. mayor said the presence of the National Guard was an affront to the safety of the district. It must be fully investigated whether political leadership here in Washington, D.C. took an inadequate and irresponsible forced posture on January 6th because of their commitment to the false narrative of what happened last June.
Wow.
Hopefully, we can all now agree that the administration acted properly by taking action to stop a riotous mob, establishing an appropriate security perimeter, and prevent the White House from potentially being overrun.
Dude, did you not?
The House
Were you-
managers argued this
Okay.
week that an alleged brief delay in issuing a public statement.
It's like he didn't see or hear the last report where they were talking about the insurrectionists being steps away from them. This guy is going all over the place. This is laughable. Is this his only guy? Does he have another guy? Is this his only guy? Because he's about to get the only reason that he's not going to get impeached, it has nothing to do with this guy's work. And before he continues with his word washing machine, he is going to get great notoriety from the right, and he's going to probably get work based on the W that he gets from here. He wasn't there for the part where They said, we're going to march down and then I'm going to go home. Oh, no, that's not what he said. We're going to march down and I'm going to go there with you. That's what he said. Whatever. Wow. Let's continue to hear this guy's thing. But yeah, apparently he forgot. He forgot about that part.
Never mind what he said on the 6th.
No, we can't never mind what he said on the 6th.
It's a hypocrisy that the House managers have laid at the feet of this chamber. The House managers suggested in this recent history is irrelevant to the current proceedings. But not only is Democrats' behavior surrounding last year's riots highly relevant as precedent, and not only does it reveal the dishonesty and insincerity of this entire endeavor, it also provides crucial context that should inform our understanding of the events that took place on January 6th. Many of the people who infiltrated the Capitol took pictures of themselves and posted them on social media. To some, it seems, they thought that it was all a game. They apparently believed that violent mobs, destruction of property, rioting, assaulting police, and vandalizing historic treasures was somehow now acceptable in the United States.
It's like he can't figure out.
Where might they got that?
Yeah, it's hilarious to me. I find his just circling around the everything and then talking about Portland and then talking about it's hilarious to me. All of this is just funny.
Spent the 6 months immediately prior to the Capitol assault giving rhetorical aid and comfort to mobs, making excuses for rioters, celebrating radicalism, and explaining that angry, frustrated,
radicalism!
and marginalized people were entitled to blow off steam like that. Let me be very clear. There can be no excuse for the depraved actions of the rioters here at the Capitol.
Let me be clear.
Anywhere else across this country.
Here we go. False equivalency.
Those guilty of committing crimes deserve lengthy prison sentences for their shameful and depraved conduct. But this trial has raised the question about words.
Does anybody know why I'm here? What's my name?
Consequences. As a nation, we must ask ourselves, how did we arrive at this place where rioting and pillaging would become commonplace? I submit to you that it was month after month of political leaders and media personalities bloodthirsty for ratings, glorifying civil unrest, and condemning the reasonable law enforcement measures.
Yeah, so which is it? Are mobs okay? Are they not okay? Are they left-wing and right-wing? Are they just right-wing? Are they bad? Are they good? What's going on?
This chamber in uniform agreement that all rioting is bad, and that law enforcement deserves our respect.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Here we go.
That has been Mr. Trump's.
This is like, okay, this right here. This right here, guys, is the reason that I hate the right wing the way that it is today. Because they just hang on to those words. They hang on to that patriotism vocabulary bingo. That's what they do. They completely ignore anything involving any sort of intellectual anything. They don't read. They don't. They need to call. No, they don't. Mr. Trump. They need to call him ex-President Trump. Our criminal ex-President Trump. I know it's a mouthful. We can get used to it.
A disapproved viewpoint. It is an unprecedented action with the potential to do grave and lasting damage to both the presidency and the
yes, emphasis on former
and the future of democratic self-government. Yesterday, we played you a video of countless Democrat members of the Senate urging their supporters to fight. We showed you those videos not because we think you should be forcibly removed from office for saying those things, but because we know you should not be forcibly removed from office for saying those things. but recognize the hypocrisy.
Is he buffering again?
Yesterday, in questioning, House Manager Raskin admitted that the House Democrats had invented an entirely new legal standard. In fact, they've created a new legal theory, the Raskin Doctrine. The Raskin Doctrine is based on nothing more than determining protected speech based on the party label next to your name.
What's your label?
Regardless of what you have heard or what you have seen from the House managers, if you pay close attention, you will see that any speech made by Democrat elected officials is protected speech.
You know, I'm talking shit right now, but he is on the world stage, and I would be shitting my pants right now.
The Raskin Doctrine actually reveals the weakness of the House manager's case. Elected officials, and we reviewed this in depth yesterday, under Supreme Court precedent, Wood and Bond, and by the way, Bond didn't burn his draft card. He actually still had it. It was part of his defense. But in...
Oh, this is a world embarrassment. But the fact that he, like, how is, I don't know what outfit he is a part of, if he's like his own company, his own law firm, or if he is like somebody who is, who works for a law firm. Because right now, at this point in time, I am sure that most major law firms wouldn't touch this guy with a 10-foot pole. So the back alley that he had to go to find this winner, I can't even imagine. So with that said, this guy's career is made after this. This guy's career is made. Whether he wins or loses, which he probably will win, but he'll win because the game is rigged in his favor. So that's why I don't think he's going to be impeached. I hope, I pray, but it is not going to be due to Mr. Magoo over here, his performance. Because holy crap, this guy is just... the buzzwords, the buzzwords are so slimy. Anytime anybody calls themselves a Christian, like, and overly talks about it, or anytime anybody uses a lot of buzzwords, oh my God. Yeah, no, I don't even know. He might not be a real lawyer. He might be he might be one of these TV lawyers that he saw in Law and Order or something. This is ridiculous. It really is. It's an embarrassment. But what I'm saying is that, like, if he worked for someone else, if he worked for himself, which is probably the case, it's probably a small law firm. I'm going to have to look it up. But if he worked for himself, then he must be really desperate. And even worse, if he works for someone else, that means that firm is desperate. And it further means that somebody was pissed enough at this guy that they gave him the case. That's insane. I do not wish to be in this guy's shoes. And oh my God, is he doing an awful job.
By the existing constitutional standard.
But to be fair, he has not been given much to work with, okay? Let's also acknowledge that. This guy was likely thrown under the bus.
This is not only intellectually dishonest, folks, it's downright scary.
Here we go. Scary.
What type of precedent would be set if the Senate did vote to convict? Can Congress now ignore Supreme Court precedent on the contours of protected free speech?
Oh, Jesus.
Will Congress be permitted to continually make up their own legal standards and apply those new standards to elected officials' speech? This would allow Congress to use the awesome impeachment power as a weapon to impeach their fellow colleagues in the opposing party.
I will never bitch a day in my life about 2020 anymore. If and only if I can see Trump with some jewelry, specifically some handcuffs, on his way to the old Gray Bar Hotel.
Literally, for centuries.
Yes, literally.
But that will not be the only disgraceful precedent to come from this case. This has been perhaps the most unfair and flagrantly unconstitutional
Jesus
proceeding
Christ.
in the history of the United States Senate.
Yeah, he's
For
not
the
a
first time in history,
not a bright cookie, this guy.
to try and punish a former president who is a private citizen. Nowhere in the Constitution is the power
Michael Val
enumerated or implied.
something or another.
Congress has no authority, no right, and no business holding a trial of citizen Trump, let alone a trial.
Oh, now it's citizen.
Of fundamental civil rights. There was mention of a January exception argument. The January exception argument is a creation of the House manager's own conduct by delaying. They sat on the article. They could have tried the president while he was still in office if they really believed he was an imminent threat. They didn't. The January exception is a red herring. It's nonsense. Because federal, state, and local authorities can investigate. Their January exception always expires on January 20th. House Democrats and this deeply unfair trial have shamefully trampled every tradition, norm, and standard of due process in a
Wow.
way I've never, ever seen before. Mr. Trump was given no right to review the so-called evidence against him at trial. He was given no opportunity to question its propriety. He was given no chance to engage in fact-finding. Much of what was introduced by the House was unverified, second or third-hand reporting cribbed from a biased news media, including
Yeah, exactly.
on anonymous sources whose identities aren't even known to them, never mind my client. They manufactured and doctored evidence, so much so that they had to withdraw it. We had the evidence after we started the trial. They went on for 2 days. So in the evening, I was able to go back and take a really close look at the stuff. Myself and Mr. Castor and Ms. Bateman and Mr. Brennan,
Okay, he has a team.
we all worked hard and looked at the evidence, 4 volumes.
Oh, so he's the asshole. He was the one that got he was the one that got the short end of the stick. He's the one that all right, Michael, you drew the short stick. You get to be in front of him.
And just in that short time of looking at the evidence, we saw them fabricating Twitter accounts. We saw the masked man sitting at his desk with the New York Times there. And when we looked closely, we found that the date was wrong, the check had been added. They fabricated evidence. They made it up. They never addressed that in their closing, as though it were acceptable,
I'm really waiting for this closing.
as though it were all right, as though that's the way it should be done here in the Senate of the United States of America.
The United States. Oh, okay, it's the internet. I didn't know if it was him again or if it was the internet.
Flat out fraud. Where I come from, in the courts that I practice in, there are very harsh repercussions for what they pulled in this trial.
Wow. This is ridiculous. Yeah.
As we have shown, the House managers were caught creating false representations of tweets, manipulating videos, and introducing into the record completely
Again
discredited
with the
lies,
manipulating video.
such as the Find People hoax, as factual evidence.
Fabricating. Dude, you used bed music on all of your evidence. You had an intern add bed music, like ominous music and scary music and then inspirational music behind Trump. You're an idiot.
One at that. House Democrats have denied due process and rushed the impeachment because they know that a fair trial would reveal Mr. Trump's innocence of the charges against him. The more actual evidence that comes out, the clearer it is that this was a pre-planned and premeditated attack, which his language in no way incited. Because their case is so weak, the House managers have taken a kitchen sink approach to the supposedly single article of impeachment. They allege that Mr. Trump incited the January 6th violence. They allege that he abused power by attempting to pressure Georgia Secretary of State Raffensperger to undermine the results of the 2020 election. And they allege that he gravely and endangered.
And so he just argued. Yeah, Lena just pointed out something great. It's triple irony over here. He argued that they delayed the impeachment, and now he's argued that they rushed it. And then he was talking about throwing the kitchen sink at the impeachment trial. What? Which is it? Which is it? And ironically enough, you're throwing the kitchen sink. This is what you've been doing. You threw Portland in it. You threw this is wow. You are an idiot. You don't know what you are doing.
Impeachment shall not be divisible thereon. Why is that? Because the article at issue here alleges multiple wrongs in the single article. It would be impossible to know if 2/3 of the members agreed on the entire article or just on parts of it as the basis for a vote to convict. Based on this alone, the Senate must vote to acquit Mr. Trump. You got to at least obey your own rules if it's not the Constitution you're going to obey.
Wow, you are such a prick.
In short, this impeachment has been a complete charade from beginning to end. The entire spectacle has been nothing but the unhinged pursuit of a long-standing political vendetta against Mr. Trump by the opposition party.
Is this his big?
As we have shown, Democrats were obsessed
Is this his big end? His big finale? Because it sucks.
at the very beginning of his term. The House Democrats tried to impeach him in his first year. They tried to impeach him in his second year. They did impeach him in his third year, and they impeached him again.
You are not lying,
in
Lena.
his fourth year.
The sad irony.
And now they have conducted a phony impeachment show trial when he is a private citizen out of office.
Just let us get away with it because that's what we've been doing this entire time.
Circus is the House Democrats' final desperate attempt to accomplish their obsessive desire of the last 5 years. Since the moment he stepped into the political arena, since my client stepped in, they have been possessed by an overwhelming zeal to vanquish an independent-minded outsider from the midst and to shame, demean, silence, and demonize his supporters in the desperate hope that they will never, ever pose an electoral challenge. We heard one of the congressmen on the screen. If you don't impeach him, he might be elected again. That's the fear.
Yeah. He's a victim and a private citizen now. That's what he is. That's his thing.
Over your decision. There are 4 distinct grounds under which you must acquit.
Has anybody heard of the Proud Boys? What's going on with those guys? I know that they turned on Trump, but that's all I know.
Jurisdiction. And if you believe that, you still get to say it. 2, Rule 23. It had to be divisible. Each allegation had to be singularly set out in front of you so it could be voted on and to see if 2/3 of you think that they proved that case or not. They didn't do that. You got to ask yourself why. They know the Senate rules. They got them, and so did I. Why'd they
This is
do it?
ridiculous.
Because they hadn't investigated, first of all. But also, what they found out is they were preparing.
That's yeah. You know what? That's the last thing I heard. The last thing I heard about the Proud Boys, which that was actually a weirdly enough a video on YouTube that caught a little bit of traction. It was basically me talking about them turning on Trump. That's really the last I've heard about them. The FBI informant part that Enrique Tarrio from Little Havana, who is an Afro-Cuban, was the leader of the Proud Boys and was also an FBI informant. Gotta love poetic justice. Like, they don't know what they're doing with technology. They don't know what they're doing when putting together gangs. Everyone, I'm sure that, like, you know, anybody that's, some of them has tried to hire a hitman or something, and it was an informant because that's what they do. There are no real hitmen anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Not that I've checked. I haven't checked. I don't care. But yeah, no. Parler, a WordPress site with zero security, taking everybody's personal information and actually getting them to give them their phone number, their real phone number. That was when I pulled back. That's when I stopped doing the whole thing, the whole Parler thing. I was going to go on, and then I was like, nope. You're not getting my real number. Forget that. All right, let's see what this grand finale is of this guy.
And division. You do not have to indulge the impeachment lust, the dishonesty, and the hypocrisy. It is time to bring this unconstitutional political theater to an end. It is time to allow our nation to move forward. It is time to address the...
I've already beat your ass. It's in the past already.
Pandemic,
It's in the past. Just let it
our
go.
economy,
Talking like an abuser.
racial inequality.
Oh, now there's racial inequality, and now we're going to be talking about COVID.
These are the things that you need to be thinking and working on for all of us in America. All of us.
All of us in America.
With your vote, you can defend the Constitution. You can protect due process. And you can allow America's healing to begin. I urge the Senate to acquit and vindicate the Constitution of this great republic. Thank you.
Holy shit, that was his grand finale.
3 years' time.
His grand finale was America.
Mr. President,
That was it.
Senators, I understand, I'm told we have around 27 minutes, but I will return all of that, but perhaps 5 back to you. There's just a few things that I need to address, and
Yeah, because this guy did all the work for us. Thank you.
unprecedented act of self-restraint on my part. I will resist the opportunity to rebut every single false and illogical thing that you just heard, and I am going to be able to return to you, perhaps 22 or 23 minutes.
All right, good.
2 points. One,
Let's watch this.
we have definitely made some progress in the last few days, because a few days ago, the president's team, although I think it was perhaps a member who has since left the team, lectured us that this was not an insurrection, and said that the impeachment managers were outrageous in using the word insurrection. Today, counsel in his closing statement said it was a violent insurrection, and he denounced it. And I would certainly love to see President Trump also call it a violent insurrection and denounce it too. And I believe, although I don't have a verbatim text, that counsel called for long sentences for the people who were involved. Again, I would love to hear that come from the president as well. The distinguished counsel complains that there's no precedent with the developed body of law that the Senate has for impeaching and convicting a president who incites violent insurrection against the Congress and the government of the United States. Well, I suppose that's true because it never occurred to any other president of the United States, from George Washington to John Adams to Thomas Jefferson to James Madison to James Monroe to Abraham Lincoln to Ronald Reagan, to George W. Bush, to Barack Obama, to incite a violent insurrection against the Union. You're right, we've got no precedent for that. And so they think that that somehow is a mark in their favor. That's a score for them.
It's so
that
funny.
this Senate has
It's
to
true.
be the first one to define incitement of violent insurrection against the Union.
Wow.
And so
that's hilarious.
the gentleman puts it on me. He says, inciting a president for committing incitement to violent insurrection against the Union is the new Raskin Doctrine. We've tried to convince him that there are well-known principles and elements
He likes
of
being first
incitement
at things.
which we have talked to you about ad nauseum, and that this is an intrinsically, inherently fact-based judgment. But if that is the Raskin Doctrine, that a president of the United States cannot incite violent insurrection against the Union and the Congress, then I embrace it, and I take it as an honor. Most law professors never even get a doctrine named after them. So I will accept that. And finally, the counsel goes back to Julian Bond's case, because I think in the final analysis, their best argument, as pathetically weak as it is really about the First Amendment. But remember, they keep talking about stifling President Trump's speech. Someone tell me when his speech has ever been stifled. He says exactly what he wants, whenever he wants.
Yep.
If
Yep.
and when you convict him for incitement of insurrection, he will continue to say whatever he wants on that day. Remember, they referred yesterday to interference with his liberty, which I found absolutely bizarre, because everybody knows that he will not spend 1 minute in prison or jail from conviction on these charges. It is a civil remedy to protect all of us, to protect the entire country, our children, our Constitution, our future. That's
Exactly.
what impeachment, trial, conviction are all about. Julian Bond. See, I knew Julian Bond, so forgive me. Most people say, don't even respond to this stuff. I got to respond to this, okay? Julian Bond was a civil rights activist who decided to go into politics, like the people in this room, like all of us who are in politics. And they tried to keep him out. He was a member of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which really
Oh, I thought it was a Saturday Night Nickelodeon.
in America. It's a great story
That was a 90s kid joke.
in his book called Radical Equations about, he was a graduate student in mathematics at Harvard, and he went down to Mississippi. You know why? Because he saw a picture in the New York Times of black civil rights protesters, college students, I think in North Carolina, AT&T, and he saw a picture of them on the cover of the New York Times, and they were sitting in at a lunch counter, and he looked at the picture and he said, they looked the way that I felt. They looked the way that I felt. And he said he had to go down south to Mississippi. And they launched the voting rights movement. That's where the phrase "one person, one vote" comes from. It was not invented by the Supreme Court. They would go door to door to try to register people to vote. But anyway, Julian Bond was part of that movement. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, nonviolence. It was the end and it was the means, nonviolence. And he ran for the state legislature in Georgia, a path other civil rights activists followed, like our great, late, beloved colleague, John Lewis, who's in our hearts today. And when he got elected, they wanted to try to keep him from being sworn into the Georgia legislature. And so they said, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee is taking a position against the Vietnam War. You're a member of SNCC. We're not going
Saturday
to
Night
admit you
Nick.
because you took a position
I know. I did it
against the
again.
Vietnam War. And the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, said you cannot prevent someone from swearing an oath to become a member of a legislative body because of a position that they took or a group they were a part of took before they got sworn in. That's the exact opposite of Donald Trump. He got elected to office. He swore an oath to the Constitution to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. He served as president for 4 years, right up until the end, when he wanted to exercise his rights under the imaginary January exception, and he incited a violent mob and insurrection to come up here, and we all know what happened. He is being impeached and convicted for violating his oath of office that he took. He's not being prevented from taking his oath in the first place. The First Amendment's on our side. He tried to overturn the will of the people, the voice of the people. He lost that election by more than 7 million votes. Some people don't want to admit it. Counsel for the president could not bring themselves to admit that the election's over. In answer to the question from the distinguished gentleman from Vermont, he refused to answer that. He said it was irrelevant, despite all of the evidence you've heard about the big lie and how that set the stage.
And the irrelevant shit he brought up.
Insurrectionary violence against us. First Amendment is on our side. We are defending the Bill of Rights. We are defending the constitutional structure. We are defending the separation of powers. We're defending the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House against a president who acted no better than a marauder and a member of that mob by inciting those people to come here. And in many ways, he was worse. He named the date, he named the time, and he brought them here, and now he must pay the price.
Well, he had the power. That's why he's worse. He wasn't just some random marauder. All right, so that's the impeachment closing arguments and all of that jazz. Yeah. Exactly. Not the ignorant slut, but the distinguished senator. That's let's see what old Schumer had to say right now. What's he saying?
The clerk will read the article of impeachment.
Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. You sound like you're dying. All right, we're done here. I'm going to start recording the hijack. The hijack starts, the hijack drops on Friday. Make sure and check out yesterday's episode where I hang out with the homie, comedian Shane Smith. We talk about all sorts of cool stuff. So thank you for watching it live. Thank you for the participants, to Lauren, to Lena, to Rincon showing up to breakdance as always, and to the people watching this in the future. I hope the future is treating you all right. And I hope that the future includes your following me on all socials and subscribing to the Hijack, to Irreverent, and to the Monday Music Mix, because you want to hang out with me. That's what you want to do. Anyway, I'm out. I'm going to go record. This week, actually, let me just say that real quick. I'm going to go back live in a little bit with my guest, who is Abed. He is the author of a book called Something About Good. The book of Something About All Good. Anyway, he's going to tell us what it is. I'm going to jump on real quick and say hi to him on live before we start recording. And then after that, I will record the show, and you can subscribe to The Hijack wherever you get your podcasts. And I will talk to you a little later. Peace.